Thinking from both life and the work. There are two practical sides to this work, called the line of work on knowledge, and the line of work on being. No one can work on the second line, their line of being, unless they have worked on the line of knowledge first. In other words, an individual must know first what it is that they have to work upon in their being. Knowledge is a matter of belonging to the intellectual center. This must change first, before anything else can change. A person must absorb new knowledge, before they can change. The knowledge of this work needs to be reflected upon. Thinking is a function of our intellectual center. If we do not think about the knowledge this work is teaching us, then our mind cannot change. And if our mind does not change, then we cannot change. It's that simple. We may believe that it makes no difference how we think, however it is important in the work, not to think incorrectly. Every time that we think, we create a track in our mind. If we think wrongly, then we make a wrong track, and our mind becomes like a delicate electrical apparatus, which is all erroneously connected. This certainly is the ordinary effect of life upon the mind. The ideas of this work, in contrast, are to make the right connection, and to give us a new mind. The work is rich in ideas, and the work as a whole can form a complete mental organism in our mind. Life does not do this. The ideas that we learn from life are confused and contradictory. They cannot form our mind on all its sides. The work ideas, however, can. They relate everything correctly by assigning the right scale to things. This is because they come from the level of conscious humanity. It should not be so difficult, therefore, to understand the idea of a person being worked from the outside or from the inside. Remember the diagram with the arrows that was previously shared. This is an ordinary being, having one organized body, their physical body, represented by the first room, and nothing organized in the second or third rooms, then of course no entry into the fourth room. Such an individual is acted upon from outside, from life, from the body, from their senses, from what they see, hear, and touch. They are undeveloped man, or man-machine, because they are driven like a cogwheel, by the great cycle of life. Take then the second diagram, representing a fully conscious individual. In this case, will controls them, acting through their developed bodies in the direction of the arrow. Which means they are not controlled from the outside, by life, but from within. Notice the direction of the arrows in the two examples given. The diagrams illustrate the difference between a person controlled from the outside and a person controlled from within. Taking this general idea then, we can go with it as follows. As long as we think from life, then we are controlled by life. To create anything mentally in ourselves that is capable of resisting life, we must think from the work. We are given in this work a system of ideas, which if connected rightly, will relate us in some new way to every side of life. When the work ideas are assimilated and lived, they transform the way in which we take life and take ourselves. But this cannot happen if we do not think from the work. Until the work ideas are rightly connected, the third room will never be properly furnished or organized for us. However, if these ideas become connected rightly within, then our mind will become a receiver, an organized instrument that is capable of picking up the vibrations of higher centers, of finer and finer meaning. Then we can be taught from within. If we think from the work, then we will think from the inside. Our mind, strengthened by receiving the ideas of this work and thinking from them, will form something organized, something within us, that is independent of outer life. Continuing then in study one of the work ideas, in the light of what has been said, we can consider work ideas on evolution. It has been pointed out that the work teaches that the general evolution of man cannot be taken as something separate from the general evolution of that part of the universe in which we live. We looked previously at the evolution of the planets, and the evolution of mankind, then the cosmic connection between us all. It was said that the evolution of mankind as a whole cannot go faster than the evolution of the Earth, along with its attendant moon. Which means that mankind's evolution, as distinct from one person's evolution, is in terms of planetary time, which is prodigious time for us, or thousands of millions of years. So for practical purposes, mankind does not evolve mechanically, and there is no mechanical progress. If a person is told that in, say, 1,000 million years, all mankind may possibly be on a higher level of evolution, it cannot interest them in any genuine way, or really alter anything for them in their daily life and their difficulties. However, with regard to thinking from the work, let's take the phrase, mankind on Earth is an experiment of the solar laboratory. It may transpire over time that this experiment could prove useless, then be set aside as a failed attempt. That is, in 1,000 million years, mankind may not be in any higher state, but perhaps could be rendered like the ants or bees, all other members of the insect kingdom, discarded as being of minimal importance, and made to follow a useless cycle of toil which leads in no direction, from which there is no way out, save the service of the hive or nest, which becomes its organism. This could only happen if the primary reason for man's creation on Earth was not fulfilled. That primary reason is individual evolution. If the conditions for the individual evolution of a person were to be destroyed, then the experiment of man on Earth would prove a failure. And if man tampers with himself, with his body, with his glands, and so on, as the ants appear to have done, then one of the conditions of evolution will be destroyed. If the experiment of man on Earth proves to be a failure, this would mean also that there would be no evolution for mankind in general, in terms of planetary time and planetary evolution. Everything depends upon the primary reason for man's creation on Earth, upon our individual evolution. Man is created a self-developing organism, and if the conditions for this self-development are destroyed, then mankind, as an experiment, becomes useless. The sun implants man upon the Earth primarily as a being capable of a definite inner development, and secondarily to serving nature, to serve the necessities of the ray of creation. Which means that man taken individually has quite a different meaning from man taken collectively, as mankind. Evolution is possible for a person, but it is not possible for mankind. A single individual can come under the influences descending from the level of the divine intelligence of the sun. But mankind, as a mass or organism, has a cosmic function, and is under the influences of the earth and the moon. Mankind as a whole serves the ray, together with the rest of organic life on Earth, at the point where a sensitive transmitter, or a shock is required between the notes fa and mi. This is the teaching of the work about evolution. Unless our mind grasps this, and thinks from it, then we will think incorrectly, we will not think from the ideas of the work. We are of course only taking one example here. However, if an individual does not think from the ideas of this work, then the work will be something indistinct and weak in them. One difficulty in thinking in this manner, in the above example, is due to the fact that people think that humanity does things. They do not realize that only individuals can do anything. Cultures have been founded by individuals, never by the masses. Humanity, the mob, never does anything, save that they destroy often enough what individuals have built. All progress in the sciences is the work of individuals, not of the masses. All art, architecture, music, and culture is due to the work of individuals. The explanation for this lies in the fact that a mass of people is on a lower level than a single individual, and so from this point of view, evolution is only possible for individuals, and not for the madding crowd or cheering audience. We cannot effectively pray for humanity. If we are going to think from the work, then we must grasp the meaning of esoteric teaching. We have learnt that unless the sun receives a sufficient quantity of evolving beings, rising from the earth, then the primary objective of man's creation will not be fulfilled. The chief conditions under which an individual can evolve depends upon the existence of esoteric teaching on the earth, and its reception by those capable of understanding it. Esoteric teaching is about inner evolution. It comes from the level of the sun. Or if you prefer, it comes from the circle of conscious humanity. Fully developed man, fully evolved human beings are at the level of the intelligence of the sun, or level 12. From this level, teaching is transplanted upon the earth. If the conditions of life are such that esoteric teaching, whether in religious form or otherwise, cannot exist on the earth, then mankind is doomed to failure, and another experiment will have to be created in our place. Such as happened with the ants and bees, and the myths surrounding the Anunnaki, who were replaced by Homo sapiens. Since the evolution of man depends upon contact with the conscious circle of humanity, let's then try to understand what takes place when a teaching is sown upon the earth. All real teaching begins with the formation of a school. A school is not open to life, as is an ordinary comprehensive school, but it has some similarities. For instance, no one can enter a real school without long preliminary training. Everyone has to reach a certain level of understanding, just as to enter, let's say, a university or college, an individual must be able to pass certain assessments of their ability. Speaking briefly then, a school only lasts for a certain period of time, just as does a religion. In other words, it dies in so far as it no longer conducts any force. Everything on earth has its period of life, its periodicity. A religion can become mechanical and no longer capable of awakening the inner side of a man. Its inner meaning is lost, then only ritual and outer form or dogma remains in its footprint. The meaning has been lost, and its force dissipated. Esoteric teaching, however, does not die. When a particular school on earth, or a religion dies, then there is always another school, another form of teaching arising. Esoteric teaching continues. It preserves itself. The ark riding on the flood of evil is an allegory of this idea. Christ's parables about the vineyard that may be destroyed refer to an esoteric school or teaching, not to esotericism itself. The point is that if man loses touch with esoteric teaching, then we are cut off and must needs degenerate. We cannot speak fully about schools yet, however the thing to grasp is that any real teaching, coming from the conscious circle of humanity, can only exist in a school and be transmitted orally. When it passes into life, when it is written down, it alters. One reason for this change is that the mind of conscious man thinks in a way in which ordinary minds cannot think. Conscious man thinks psychologically, mechanical man thinks in an Aristotelian manner, logically. This change is expressed in the work by a diagram of the three influences called C, B, and A. C influences are directly from conscious humanity. When they enter the circle of mechanical life, they are changed into B influences. A influences are the influences created in life, through wars, money, politics, science, business, the media, and so on. In the mechanical circle of life, A and B influences exist. A man who possesses magnetic center is aware of this. But a man who does not, cannot perceive it. A influences drive life, and produce the ordinary history of the world. The conscious circle of humanity, however, cannot communicate directly with the mechanical circle of humanity, for they would not be understood. The conscious circle of humanity understand one another, but mechanical men would understand in quite different ways, and begin to quarrel and break one another's heads, as in the allegory of the Tower of Babel. Recorded history is littered with such examples. If all mankind were developing, if all were overcoming their violence, their state of sleep, their negative emotions, their internal considering, and in fact doing this work, then it would be possible. But for this understanding to begin to take place, men would have to speak a common language. There is no common language, and so people do not, and cannot possibly understand one another. When one person says love, it means something else to another. When one person speaks of quality, it means one thing to them, and something very different to another. When one person pleads for compassion, justice, or kindness, it means one thing to one person, and something very different to their neighbor. Only the conscious circle of humanity, which is man number 5, number 6, and number 7, can understand one another. Number 4 men begin to understand one another. In other words, people developed in all three centers, and therefore balanced. But the circle of mechanical humanity, number 1, number 2, and number 3 man, cannot understand one another. They are respectively one-centered individuals, one-sided, and so unbalanced or biased in their outlook on life as they know it. In the study of this work, we learn a common language, by means of which we can begin to understand one another. One has only to realize the difference between talking to a person who knows this work, and another who knows nothing, to realize a little of what is meant. It makes no difference whether we learn this work in Russian or French or English. We are still learning a common language. And in a sense, it can be said that we are studying the language of conscious humanity. That is why it is important to learn, and to understand, then think in terms of it, to think from the work. If everyone on earth began to study and speak a common language, in this regard, then it might be possible for mankind to take a step forward. It would be possible for something universally agreed upon to develop. It would be possible for everyone to make the necessary sacrifices and effort at the right time, when shocks were necessary, so as to fulfill the demands of the law of octaves. The work teaches that a step forward is presently possible, the dawning of a new age is imminent, and mankind need not serve the moon as has been done up until this moment. This is the age of Aquarius or enlightenment, often referred to in New Age literature. However, look around you at what is happening. Is there any less servitude on Earth, even though there is less servitude needed by the moon? If we leave the world of supposition, the world of fantasy and imagination, then think practically, we can understand the enormity of any step forward. One has only to notice how difficult it is for ourselves to learn the common language of this work, and how difficult it is to stay awake, then make the necessary effort that the work teaches. Habit is a strong master to usurp. So do not blame the conscious circle of humanity for our failures. Man has been given many things to ease his life, but he persists in misusing them all. Look around today, all the world turning to making weapons and amassing wealth as never before. Yet everything that can be done to make men evolve individually has been done, and is done. In spite of all of this, there can be no mass evolution, no forced evolution, no evolution by command or by compulsion. For all evolution is a matter of an individual's understanding, of a person seeing for themselves. The right inner development of a man and his right crystallization depend upon understanding. We know that from the esoteric point of view, a man is his understanding, and a man's understanding is what he is. But we cannot make someone understand. We cannot force them to understand why they should not act as they do, or compel them to understand that they should not speak as they do. There can be no violence, no collective coercion, and above all no physical fear used. For fear does not develop our understanding. You cannot make a dog understand what you want it to do by fear. You can only teach it what it must not do by that method, but it will never understand why. It will only understand emotionally, through fear. Our case is the same. The esoteric circle of humanity cannot force mankind to understand. It cannot appear visibly in some supernatural or terrible way to us, as then we would be forced, by the evidence of our senses, and forced through intimidation. We would be coerced from outside, which is not understanding, as real understanding depends upon our seeing the meaning of something for ourselves. To see the meaning of something is internal, and develops our internal side, so that it becomes stronger than the outer, life-driven side of our influences. It is necessary to see the difference between seeing something with the senses, and understanding something with the mind. A person's evolution is inner. Their possibilities, as a created being, lie in the development of their mind and emotions, of their knowledge and being, which form understanding. Only through understanding is development possible. This is the basis of the fourth way, understanding.